Identity and access management is everywhere. As a human being, we have our own identity. On top of that, we have our digital identity, which impacts our privacy and security. I'm going to talk about how machine learning can be used to improve our experience with identity and access management in enterprise environments. First, I talk about what is even identity. Then I talk about why it matters, and we go to a case study, and I talk about the challenges and solutions that we put in place. Basically, identity and access management will give you the right access at the right time to the right user. With the traditional way of looking at identity, which we had just our infrastructure, now with the movement to the cloud, we see that the identity is extended beyond our parameters. And the problems becomes more difficult. If you look at what we have as a problem of identity using SaaS solutions, IoT, and cloud infrastructure, we will deal with the thousands of applications every day. And if we think of how we will authenticate ourselves to these applications, is it username and password, we'll come up with too many usernames and passwords, and probably all of them are the same. So you can already understand what happens to our privacy and identity. Basically, identity and access management is there to provide enterprise governance. It's important for compliance and regulation. It's also important for security, which is basically the backbone of the security. And it impacts our productivity at work. Not mentioning that data leakage that is getting more and more important, is a lot of them are because of misassignment of identities. If you look at the maturity that we have at identity and access management, the first level is that we have a central identity application, and all the applications that we have is actually going to be federated with this central solution. It improves the authentication because you authenticate now one single application, and your identity will be transferred between all the applications that you have in enterprise environments. The second layer is that now that we have central solutions, we can have reporting, we can improve our user experience, and we can work on the federation. And the last level is that, okay, now we generated the data, let's look at it. Let's see how we can improve it, how we can add automated provisioning and risk-aware decisions. When I was hired at Philip Morris, identity and access management that we have in place, it has very bad reputation. People are suffering with it. There are many reasons that we are looking into it, and we've come up with a solution that we put in place, and I'm going to talk about it. First, I look at the data. We saw that we are around 1,500 applications integrated in our identity solution. Not talking about the applications that are not integrated yet. The identity is basically the relationship between roles and accounts. The accounts are assigned to individuals, and roles basically you could consider a bucket of privileges that you have when you access a specific application, for example. We have traditional two-layer process. It means that when you request an access, is your line manager approving? Then the application owner should decide if you really need to access his application or not. We have around 50,000 employees and around 100,000 accounts, which including consultant accounts, and this gives you the dimensionality of the problems that we are addressing. We look at the history of the last 5 or 6 years of the approvals, we saw that we have around 7 million requests that have been dealt with. Interestingly, 95% of them were approved. You can already understand, okay, if IAM solution is for security, when 95% of what you request is approved, why you have it there even? We did a simple calculation and said that in order to go to your centralized identity solution, if it takes you 10 seconds to just go there and decide if I should reject or approve this request, we are talking about 104,000 hours of employees, which is roughly about $3 million, just wasted for 5% of approvals that were rejected. On top of that, I should mention the hidden cost, which is a lot more than that. For example, when you have a project for 2 weeks project and you have a collaborator coming on site, it might get 1 week to just give him enough access to start looking into what he should do. And you can already understand the extra cost that this solution can have on the enterprise, what was supposed to help us move faster. When we look at the identity data, we saw two main sources. The first one was this role and account relationship. Help us to create groups. Basically, the decision that we are going to take for a new role that is requested is a consensus of people in your neighborhood. That's our peer grouping similarity. The other part is that looking at this past record of data that we had, these 7 million records, and learn a model on top of that. And combining these two models together, we will create our automated decision-making system. What we could achieve with this model was main three pillars. The first one was why we even started, was user experience. People were frustrated with waiting long and long for approvals and constantly re-requesting their approvals, because these 7 million are not 7 million people, is actually each role has expiration. And when it's expired, your access, you need to re-request it again and pass through these two layers of approval. What we did, we defined a set of roles that, based on the job, you will receive them by default. So we know that, based on the communities that we created, these are the set of roles that you need them up front. You don't need to go and request them. We will give it to you. You need them. We speed up the process of approvals, and we remove these two layers of approval, the places that are not required. Because what we came up, we were risk-aware decisions. We have our applications have risks, and based on this risk, we will understand that we should not apply the same process everywhere. It doesn't make sense. The second one is security, which is, as I said, is backbone of identity and access management. So what we did, we take data-driven decisions and focus these two layers of approval in the places that are necessary for the application that are important, not everywhere. And we removed the unnecessary ones. We extended the current solution. We didn't change the solution. Nobody wants to touch these monsters that was developed for years and years and been evolved for so many years. We could speed up the process. Just what we did, we used the current solution. We created some sort of a patch in a way that runs in a separate Docker and just contacts our IAM solution and takes the decision and applies there. So I said the first data source that we had was that relationship between roles and accounts. What we did, we said, OK, let's look at each account, and let's look at the vector of roles. So we get all the roles that we have. This account either has them or it doesn't have them. We create these big vectors, and we try to compare them. We go simple. We create some sort of collaborative filtering, and based on thresholding, we created a new network, which is actually, this is our crowd per user. So this is basically what you see is a crowd that is created based on people that are working similar to that person at the center. This crowd is a bit different, actually it's very different from the crowd of your HR users, because when you look at the HR, your teammates, well, they are your friends, they are your teammates, but not necessarily work on the same projects with them. Therefore, you need to access different roles, which you have different crowds. How this is helpful, now if that person requests a new role, this role is, decision is taken based on the neighbors. So if there is similarity within your neighborhood, we will give you the role because you are working with them and you need it. The second was that we're looking at the history of data, history of approvals. We did a lot of filtering because there were some roles that were always approved. So these were a lot of bias. We removed them already. We learned the neural net 7-layer models. We can go to the details. I'm available. And we learned the history that we had. What was important here is that for us, if a role was approved, if we reject it this time, it doesn't matter because we can already pass you through 2 layers of approval and we can correct our model. But what is more important is that we reject you on what it was supposed to be rejected. So that's the accuracy that for us is more important. That's the focus of the model that we integrated there. Then at the end, we set up the whole infrastructure. So we had our backend, which were the 2 models combined together. We have our front end. The backend is AWS, state-of-the-art CI/CD pipelines, whatever. And you have the front end, which talks to our IAM solution every 5 minutes now. So it takes the requests, sends it to the backend. Backend takes the decision, front end applies the decision. So everything is automated. What is also on top of that is that identity in digital environment, like most of this in digital environment, is quite volatile, changes quite often. For that, we needed to send our data every hour to the backend and relearn our model. That's what we should have done, and we did it. With that, I want to finish my talk with 2 takeaways. First, I start with identity and access management is everywhere, is in an enterprise. We have it inside a private life as well, which has big impact on how we work. Second is that the data is already available, very well, not very well, almost well labeled for us. We hope that our employees did their job properly. But with cheap solutions, which basically cost us nothing, we can already have a drastic improvement in the current solution that is in place. And in order to distribute this, we are going to open source our solution, and we will make it available to everybody and hope that people start using it in different environments and contribute to our solution. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm available for further discussion.